Welcome to the Evolution Partners podcast, where I talk with the world's leading thinkers, planners, and doers who are helping to build great companies in their own way. We learn how the work they're doing is creating an impact and get to know a little bit more about them and what makes them tick. This episode is brought to you by Evolution Partners, where we help leaders to confidently build enduring great companies using our proven, structured, strategic planning process that ensures you build and execute the right plan. Check us out at evolutionpartners.com.au. Also, you can check out our books, Made to Thrive, outlining how to be a great CEO, as well as Onboarded, which is about making your new hires more effective faster. Today I'm joined by Mike Mirau from Dallas, Texas. Mike is the founder of Proactive Leadership Group, where he strives to empower and inspire business leaders to achieve the greatness that lies within themselves and their organizations, and to ultimately fulfill their purpose with passion and excellence. Proactive have worked with 1,000 companies across 100 industries. They have 5 mid-market business coaches that work across the USA. You can find them at resultsimproved.com. Now, Mike's both a planner and a doer with another business, Tribute Printing Solutions, a specialty printing company headquartered in Mesquite, Texas. Mike,
Yes.
It's great to have you here.
Hi, Brad. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. So, I first want to start off with a question about what I have observed from afar and sometimes from a bit closer. What I see in you is a great empathy and a great drive to help people become a better version of themselves. But that's coupled with a competitive spirit. I see that through the business and the sports that you the way that you love that side of it. I see through the work that you've done that there's a thread that's helping people become better. Now, if that resonates with you, tell us, how did you come to be in this place?
Well, I've been doing the coaching thing I'm actually starting my 24th year of doing this. And after a 20-year corporate career, I realized that I had more to offer people than just doing a job, and felt, I stand on the shoulders of people that came before me in the corporate world. I had some of the best leaders and the best mentors that helped me learn how to treat people, learn how to lead people, and I got to really hone and sharpen those skills. And I've been a senior leader in very large companies and then also in a startup. And so I've kind of seen this from both ends, and I've seen the challenges that these guys face. And I have a unique skill set in that I came out of information technology, but I touched every aspect of the business, everything, from marketing, sales, operations, finance, you name it, HR. I mean, our systems were involved in every aspect of that business. And so, given that perspective and seeing what works and what doesn't work, I really saw that there's a huge gap in the needs that people have out there that are trying to launch and run and be successful in their business and lead their business. And I felt like that some of my experience, some of my background in education would be conducive to trying to help those people. And that's just my natural bias. I am very much more let's see how we can help someone figure this out, as opposed to telling people what to do. I'm not really wired to be a quote, quote, consultant, although sometimes I have to put on the consultant hat. But I'm more about the coaching, helping them have that aha moment or that discovery. And that, honestly, that's the great joy of what we get to do, is when you see that light bulb come on for people and they get it and they begin to implement and do some of the things you talk about. And then when they have the success, It's really interesting. We talk about metronomics and three hag and that kind of thing. And in 23, I had one of my clients achieve their three hag,
Yeah.
and it was substantial. It was a substantial achievement. And I mean, they worked their tails off to get it done. And that was very fulfilling for me to know that I had a hand in them having the growth and the execution that they did. And honestly, that's why we get up in the morning to get to go do this, is because it's a chance to help somebody.
And that's a great example. Someone achieving their 3 year goal, their 3 year highly achievable goal, or three hag.
Hmm.
You know, it was almost 10 years ago where I really began to recognize the passion that you've got, and I guess why we've become and remained friends, and why I've even invited you on there. And that seed, you gave a speech in, I think it might have been Texas, at one of these big summits.
Hmm.
And there you were telling the story about a guy called Joel Tardy, who
Yeah.
was the owner of a business called, I think it was Culligan Water in
Culligan Water. Yeah.
yeah,
In
in
Lubbock, Texas.
Lubbock,
Yeah.
Texas. And I got to
Yeah.
tell you, the passion that came out when you told the story, and it was, as I recall, Joel has his core values, and you were telling the story about when there's a core values winner, they have a ceremony that they do. Can
Yeah.
you remember that? Can you just like update me? Like
Oh, yeah.
how's that?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that Joel did once we nailed down the core values, and it's really interesting. When I first met with Joel, one of the questions I asked, I said, "Do you have core values for your organization?" He goes, "Yeah, I do." And he handed me this piece of paper, and it had 10 core values on there. And I thought, well, this is really good. He's kind of figured this out. And I folded the piece of paper up. I said, "Okay, tell me what's on that piece of paper." He couldn't name a single one of them. And so I said, we really don't have the core values you think you have. Just because you got a piece of paper that's got on there doesn't mean it's there. And we proceeded to go through and figure out 5 core values for the organization. And once we nailed that, we began to roll it out. His father had been in the Navy. And one of the things that's kind of a big thing in the military service is what's called challenge coins, and he created a challenge coin for the company that had the core values on it. It referenced his father who had started the business,
Wow.
and it had a saying on there that was something his father used to say about the business, that if you're 2 degrees off course, you're never going to arrive at your destination. And so they said he came up with this challenge coin. It was beautiful. And but one of the things that he says, we're just not giving these out. He said, if you want the challenge coin, you have to know the core values, you have to know what they mean, you have to behave consistent with the core values. Then they had a ceremony, and the ceremony was called Carry the Water. And what they did was they had a couple of buckets and a PVC pipe with the buckets on each end. And the whole company lines up and they've got water guns. And so you have to walk down and back while they shoot you with the water gun. And then when you get back, you have to quote the core values and what they mean. And if you go down and back and you carry the water through the water guns and you can recite the core values, you get the challenge coin. And he did that to make it special.
Yeah.
And Joel was really world class at coming up with. He was very creative. He's an artist by trade, actually. He paints, and the what was fascinating about the process was he saw the value in really hammering home the core values to his team, and they loved it. They loved the fact that you just didn't get it, that you had to earn the challenge coin. And it was a phenomenal thing to get to be there and watch that happen. For 2 or 3 of the team members
Yeah.
that earned their challenge coins, and it was very special, very
I
special.
mean, that's one of the things, right? You can have the core values, on the wall, but this is what's inside your heart.
Hmm.
This is what is absolutely, you just cannot break those rules. They're core. Some people would say 10's too many. I don't know how many you guys end up with. Maybe 3 to 6 is kind of where we end up with broadly, but it's the actions that you take to bring them to life that really matter. And that's why I always love that story. And also, as I said initially, the passion with which it brought out in you was it wasn't just that they had the values, but they made it a bit of fun.
Sure.
They made it something that they could work with. Yeah.
Yeah. And they would celebrate the core values every month. They would have a core value of the month, and then whoever the person was that demonstrated that value the most throughout the month got some kind of prize or some kind of reward. And it was funny. I went in there one day and I hear this clack, 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 and I'm like, "What is that?" He said, "That's our wheel of fortune." And I'm like, "What?" And well, they had put a spinning wheel with the little things on it. And if you were the core value winner, you got to come in and spin the wheel. And there was a $50 bill. There was a gift certificate to a really nice restaurant. There were movie tickets. There were, 2 tanks of gasoline. I mean, all these prizes. And if you were the winner, you got to go spin the wheel and you got whatever it landed on. So he did a lot of things to make them fun, but he also referenced them in feedback sessions, in celebrations, their quarterly themes. One of the best quarterly themes that they had was the theme was health and fitness. Because water is necessary for a healthy life, and so they tied it to how many people can we serve with healthy water, and they set a, a program around how many people they could serve that particular quarter. And if they all achieved that, then they everybody got a certificate to go down to the shoe store and get a new pair of running shoes or walking shoes. And then they signed up and did a charity 5K as a team. The whole company participated in this. So if you were a runner, you could run it. If you were a walker, you could walk it. And he came back and said that was absolutely one of the best team building events they had done. And they got a nice new pair of shoes. I mean, he sprung for good quality shoes. And we brought the team together in a common experience, a common goal, and that was just a great example of one of their core values. And
Yeah.
that's what gets you fired up is when you see this stuff in real life. I'll give you another example. I have a home builder that I work with, and whenever they sell a new home, the homeowners have to come in and sign their closing papers. And they have a bell on the wall, and whenever the closing is done, they ring the bell, and everybody in the office comes out of their office and shakes the hand of the new homeowner.
Yeah. Nice.
And it's an experience for the team because they get to see this is a person who's going to benefit from the
Yeah.
work that we do day in and day out. But that person that got the home, they're never going to forget that.
Oh,
They're
that's
never
awesome.
going to forget that celebration when they closed on their home. And there's examples after example after example where you see this demonstrated how this becomes part of the culture of the organization. It's a cornerstone part of the culture. And when you see this stuff come to life, I mean, it gives you goosebumps.
Yeah, that's awesome. In the book Made to Thrive, I spoke about the ambassador role and actually gave an example of a home builder, and the CEO owner would walk in and they would welcome them to the process. But I love what you said because that's bringing out the pride at the end, and no one wants to do a crappy job and have to go and shake someone's hands and have a
Right.
negative kind of experience. So it's like a self-fulfilling loop. It continues to make things good. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. When I go visit over there, I always hope I'm coming sometime when the bell's ringing, when somebody's closing on their deal and they have the bell. And I mean, they have about 200 people in their office. So you have 200 people that stop what they're doing. Their office is in kind of a loop in the office building, and the people come out of the closing room, they smile on their face. Their core purpose is to change lives. It's not to build and sell homes. Their core purpose is to change lives by having people have that American dream of owning a home.
Yeah.
And so they don't track how many homes they sell, they track how many lives get changed. And it's a perspective that is one of those things that comes from the heart. You can tell they really believe this, and this is why they get up in the morning and go to work. And these guys work hard and they do very, very well. But it all comes from the leadership too. The leaders lead the way with this. They live these values out day in and day out. They recognize it, they celebrate it, they make it real inside the company. And so it's fun. It is so much fun when you get to see this stuff play out. That in theory, when we get trained and we learn all this stuff, you see the theory behind it, but when you see it really play out in human beings, it's a kick. It's just a total kick.
It is. And it's a kick, I think, because it's just not that common. So
No.
there are so many things that are challenges for leaders today. I mean, more competition, eroding margins, employee challenges, as we kind of mentioned, new technology like AI, new technology. It's like everything is always at you. And that's really just to name a few. So
Yeah.
when you come across leaders for the first time and you can sense this it's just a bit too much. I mean, how do you address that? How do you deal with that? How do you manage those situations?
Well, one of the things that we do when we make a decision whether we're going to work with an organization or not is we look for what we call a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is one that is open-minded, that they are willing to change. One of our partner coaches, a guy by the name of Bill Napolitano, has a great question that we use all the time. And we ask, what are you not willing to change in order to achieve what you want to achieve?
Yeah.
Okay? Powerful question, because you're like, well, I can't fire my brother-in-law, or I can't, this lady's been here 20 years. I can't remove her. I can't change her out.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. Or we've got so much invested in this system that we can't get rid of it, even though it's the bottleneck or it's the thing that's keeping us from being able to move forward. And we look for people that don't have what we call those barriers, those mental barriers that say we can't do this, we can't do that. A growth mindset says we can, and we just got to figure it out. And that's what we look for in the people that we work with. And you're absolutely right. There's a whole lot more of the other guys than there are those guys. Because if you go back and look at why a lot of people start their business, I hear this a lot, and I'm sure you do too. Hey, I got to feed my family.
Yeah.
I got to take care of my family. I'm doing this because I know how to do it, and I think I can make it a go. But I'm not into all that team building crap. I'm not into all that process stuff. I know how to do this, and I can do it well, and people need it. So I have some customers. They hire me all the time. Those are not the guys that want to go to the next level. They're just trying to survive. They're trying to ride this thing out until they decide they don't want to do it anymore, and then they're going to sell it and retire or find something else to do. That's not the guys that understand that the value in their organization in most cases is not them. It's the customers, it's the team that they built, it's the environment that they built. I've had a couple of clients that have exited their business in the last couple of years. And they've been able to get huge multiples on their business, not because of their profitability, which is kind of a typical standard that people look at, how profitable is the business, but because of their team and their culture. that there's incredible value and that organizations will buy a company that has that culture. As a matter of fact, one of the clients was bought by a $1 billion corporation, and the CEO told me, he said, one of the reasons we bought these guys was because we love their culture and we want to infuse some of that in our organization. And so it's infectious. When you see it, you go, that's a great place to be. That's a great company to work for. An interesting thing, Brad, is if the Society of Human Resource Management, which is a big kind of the HR organization all the HR people ascribe to, they did a survey of over 100,000 employees on the top 4 things that they look for, in organizations that they're thinking about joining. The number one thing was culture. What is the culture of the organization? And if they go in for the interview and the culture's not evident for them, they don't get that warm, fuzzy, that feeling that this is a good place and people are happy to be here and they love doing their work. If they don't feel that, they close the door. And there's a lot.
With that, sorry, Mike, the problem with that is that the interviewer probably doesn't think that. They think something completely different.
Absolutely.
And anybody else who's in the interview and the other people who want this new hire, if they're good, they don't even see that that's important.
Yeah. It's interesting because part of this mindset, we talk about this growth mindset, is they understand the value of people and that we need the people more than they need us. But a lot of CEOs, their egos say, well, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, I started this, I own this, I'm giving them a job. Okay, that's the mindset they have. And I'm sure in your research for your first book, you saw some of this. They have that mindset of, I'm doing them a favor by giving them a job. No, they're doing you a favor by working for your company, because if they weren't there, guess who has to do all the work? Guess who has to carry all the water or all the pressure? And it's the way we look at people, and the leaders that we work with where we have the greatest success, they have a clear understanding of the value of their team. And it's not just a monetary value, we're part of something special. You said something about competition, competitive fire. I was an athlete through all my high school and college days and even some post college. And, that athletic spirit, that competition, I love to compete, love to compete. And I am a horrible loser. My wife and daughter will tell you flat out, I'm a horrible loser. I play to win. And so I'm very competitive, but I also love to see that in my clients, because if you go back to the concept of strategy, one of the core components of strategy is, how do we win?
Yeah.
How do we win in the market? How do we win with our team? How do we win with our customers? And it's a great metaphor for the competition, that we're not just doing this for our health. We're doing this to win. Okay. Now, the definition of winning may vary, organization to organization, but you want to work with those people that have that innate desire to win.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they'll do what it takes. They'll do the work. And that's what I saw in my athletic career, was the people that were willing to do the work typically had success. Those that just lived on their talent and didn't practice and didn't do the things that you needed to do to get better, their talent would only take them so far, but then you got to kick in that discipline, that training, and all that other stuff that makes you better, that allows you to go to another level. And I see that same dynamic happens in companies, in leaders. Okay? The leaders think they've arrived and they know everything and they don't have anything to learn. Those guys are typically not part of that escalating growth organization. They typically go flat or decline. And it's those that understand that leaders are learners and leaders have to get better. They invest in themselves. They're always learning. Those are the organizations that tend to take those next steps and become those bigger companies and have that success. And it is 100% a mindset. We see it
Yeah,
all the time.
absolutely. And I find it to be one of the biggest things that actually holds motivated leaders back is they don't surround themselves with people who want to learn, who want to get better, and who want to step change to the next level.
Yeah. That was one of the great lessons I learned in my corporate career was I was an IT guy, so I was very good at it. I mean, I was good at it. But one of the things I learned when I became the leader or became the boss, that it wasn't how good I was or my contribution to the process. I was more successful when I realized I needed to surround myself with people better than me.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what I looked for in my leaders. I wanted people that could do this way better than I could. And my job was to hold the ladder. Let me make sure you've got the resources. Let me make sure you've got what you need to be successful. And that's when my career really took off because we won as a group. We worked together as a group, but I had to surround myself with people that were better than me.
And you need that ego check, that EQ, that ability to self-reflect to get to that place. And some people just never get there because of the aforementioned things.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, perhaps a slightly different question. I'm working on a book now. You know me, right? Working on a book now, and
Yeah.
it's about building a better business. So tell me, Mike, what do you think that a better business looks like for you and most of the people that you deal with?
It's a good question. A better is a very subjective term. Okay. From
Yeah.
what's the perspective? And I ask a similar question in what does success look like? How do we know if we're being successful? So, a better business to me is one that is delivering a high degree of value for their customers. Their customers go, I don't want to work with anybody else because these guys are so good.
Yeah.
Okay, the high value, there's a perceived high value. The people that work in the organization work there not for their compensation, but because they feel like they're attached to something that's making a difference. Okay? They feel like that there's a clear reason why we get up and do what we do every morning. So they're highly motivated. They'll stay late, they'll work long, they'll do what they can to take care of the customer, and they will go above and beyond when other companies won't. So high value, motivated team, profitable. Okay, because I'm all for having all this great culture and all this other stuff, but when it's all said and done, we still have to be profitable and we have to make money and we have to be real about what's going on in our business. So there's a degree of internal honesty about our real state of affairs. Okay.
Yeah.
And I encounter this a lot where people play games with their P&L. They put this as part of cost of goods, and I mean they play all kinds of games. And you look at it and you go, this is not truth. This is not the truth. And you look at it and go, this is a house of cards that some forensic accountant will come in here and tear this apart
Yeah.
because of the games that they're playing. The owner takes too much money or doesn't take a salary. They take everything in dividends. They play all kinds of games, and they don't really have a true picture of the performance of their business. So they got to know their numbers. That's another, how do you make business better? I'm a big believer that when you measure something, it gets better, it improves. When you measure it and report it, it gets even better. And when it's measured and reported by the person who's doing the work, it goes through the roof. I've seen that in sales. I've seen that in operations. I've seen that in leadership teams. And so you get a higher level of engagement, employee engagement, when people have a stake in the outcome. People understand that they're reporting on what they or their team did. So having dashboards and visibility to the critical numbers that drive the business, I think is another way to make the business better. And then looking, there's two other value propositions that you want to find in a business to make it great. You want to have a great employee experience. So starting with onboarding, dude, great book on onboarding and great process there and real value in doing onboarding. So, from that point to this person is in their role and in their job and doing their work, that employee experience is so important to retain employees.
Yeah.
If we go back and look at what Brad Smart talked about in top grading, that the cost of a bad hire or the cost of losing somebody in the organization could be 10 to 15%, 10 to 15x their salary.
Yeah.
And I've had CEOs sit and tell me that the bad hire they made cost them literally millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so making sure that these people are onboarded, that they know their job, they're performing at the level, there's accountability. There's a culture of accountability where it's okay to say, hey, you're not measuring up. Now let's figure out how we do better. So having that employee experience where they're treated fairly, they're treated honestly, they have opportunity. I was talking about the society, the culture being number one on the four things that people look for. Number two is career opportunity, a career path. And so when we're talking about the employee experience, is there a growth path for them? Is there a way for them to get better, add new skills, do those types of things? And when you've got environments where people can grow in their job, they're not going anywhere.
No.
They're going to sit there and continue to work for those opportunities. And then you've got to make sure that the business is profitable enough to pay adequate compensation, not top, because I think compensation got out of whack here a couple of years ago. I mean, what they were paying some people was stupid money.
Yeah.
Okay, and now it's starting to come back to some degree of realism, but compensation's got to be fair and it's got to be perceived fair. And so making sure you've got a good comprehensive compensation strategy is really important. But having a cradle to grave employee experience laid out and designed is really, really important. That's one value deal. The second is the customer experience. Do we understand from the first point that we make a contact or a connection with a customer all the way through to the end? They're not buying our product or service any longer. What happens in between? And the more we can create that by design, that we can enhance that customer experience and
Yeah.
find those ways to deliver more value, that's what makes you have a great business. When you've got those things figured out.
Yeah.
And so it's team, it's our customers, even our vendors. Do we have a roadmap for our vendors? A lot of people take advantage of their vendors. They beat the crap out of their vendors. And I don't think that's a good thing to do. Some of the best business opportunities I've had in my career and in my business has come from my vendors because we treat them right. We treat them with respect. And do you architect that vendor experience? Do you pay your bills on time? Do you talk to them in a cordial manner? Don't when something doesn't go right, stuff's going to break. Something's going to go
Yeah.
get messed up. Do you deal with them appropriately rather than yelling at them? Because yelling at them ain't going to change anything.
Totally.
So
Totally. Thank you. You didn't write the synopsis, but certainly we're aligned around some of those things.
very
Yeah.
good,
Yeah. So it's
very
still a
good.
long way to go on that book, that's for sure. But on that topic, is there a book that you would recommend for our audience? And if so, why?
Probably the book I would recommend today, just because I just finished it here a few weeks back, is a book by a guy named Hardy and Dan Sullivan. They worked on it together, and it's called 10x is better than 2x.
Yeah.
And the reason why I would recommend that book is it talks about having a 10x mindset. Okay, and that when we think, oh, we just got to double the company, there's so many variables that come into play, and there's so many paths to get there. But when you say I got to 10x the company, the decisions get this big.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we got to do to 10x this thing? What are the assumptions we got to throw out the window? And it forces you to think differently. And that I always love books that get you to think, that go, okay, why am I limiting what we can do? And so it all comes back to mindset, because mindsets drive our behaviors and behaviors drive our results. And so that would be the book that I would hand out today, of the books that I
Yeah,
read, and I read a lot. So
I know that's why one of the reasons I asked. Yeah, I've read it too. It definitely gets you to think differently.
yeah,
And there was some bits in there where I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But certainly there was some bits where I was like, well, that's a really, really interesting and different perspective.
yeah.
So thank you. So tell me, how can people learn more about you and your business?
The best thing they can do is just reach out to us and let's have a conversation. Okay. We do a lot of different things. We really can touch any aspect of a business. And so, we have methodologies and systems and processes that we use that have been developed over these 24 years we've been doing this. We've seen what works, we've seen what doesn't work. And the best way to find out whether we're a good fit and whether they're a good fit is for us just to have a conversation. We love to talk to people. There's nobody we won't talk to. I'm a big believer in Lencioni's book, Getting Naked. We like to deliver value every time we sit down and have a conversation. And so we invite people to just come spend some time with us. Come have lunch with us, or come to our office. We'll sit down. We'll do a 90-minute strategy session, and you'll walk out of there with something you can go do. Okay.
Cool.
But then we figure out whether it makes sense for us to work together.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a great method. And so that again is resultsimproved.com.
Results improved. Yes, sir.
Okay. I had to get you to say it in case people didn't understand the Australian accent.
Yeah.
Okay. So in closing, what haven't we discussed that you wanted to cover today?
Oh, probably one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing a lot of my clients deal with right now is cash flow.
Yeah.
And their Alan Milts has a thing called the cash. I forget the name of the cash flow. The six or seven levers.
Yeah, the power of one, the seven.
Power of one. That's it.
Yep.
And when you start looking at that and you see the impact that can have on your cash flow, I've had several clients that have really struggled with cash flow, and we've implemented that power of one. And it's not major shifts, it's just awareness. And one of the things I say all the time is awareness is half the battle. Because if you're aware, then you've got choices you can make. And so being aware of your cash flow, where it is, where it's going, what's impacting that, and making a few better choices, you can see that cash flow problem go away.
Yeah.
But it's being aware of that. And that's one of the challenges I see a lot of people struggling with.
Yeah, it's an awesome tool. We use the cash flow story with all of our clients, and we did an internal webinar recently with them. And the budgeting feature, so predicting the future, is awesome in that software as well. So
Yeah.
Thank you. Mike,
Does that budgeting feature, does it go out? How far does it go out? Is it 12 months or is it 30?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I've used the quarter and the 12 months.
Uh-huh.
It may do 36 months, but I take that with an asterisk. I'm not 100% sure, but
Yeah.
it's excellent because you can tweak all of the line items to say, how do we get the numbers?
See, I love that.
Yeah, it's super cool. Mike, we're up on time, but what a pleasure to chat as always. Your humor, your stories, your intellect has just been a joy for me. So thank you so much for your time today.
Very welcome.
It's been such a pleasure. I thank you. And do have yourselves a great day. And thank you for joining us today on the Evolution Podcast.
I will. Thank you,
podcast.
Brad.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. If you'd be kind enough to leave a review for the podcast, that'd be really helpful to other like-minded entrepreneurs, and then we can grow our community. If you want to find out more about our guests, head over to evolutionpartners.com www.ceo.com.au/podcast, where you can find show notes and other additional reading. Hope to see you back next week. Until then, keep thriving.